Good morning. I'm Eric Jacobson, Business Growth Specialist with iConnection, which is a digital marketing agency. I'm also the founder of Manufacturer Insights. And I'm pleased this morning to have two guests with me today. I have Vinay Govande with espi. Good morning, Vinay.
Good morning.
And I also have Tim Pelesky, who's with Onexia, which is a robotics company.
Good morning, Eric.
I'm very excited to have these two speakers with us today who are experts in their industries. And Vinay, I'm going to start with you. Could you tell me a little bit about your background and what does espi do?
Certainly, Eric. Glad to be here with you this morning. ESPI is a consulting business focused in the manufacturing domain over the last 20 years. We are all about improving the operational excellence, innovation excellence, and information excellence for our customers. And what all this means is improving their productivity, improving their competitive advantage, helping them grow and be more profitable. That's what we are passionate about. And our consultants do a fantastic job of delivering to that promise.
Great. Thank you, Vinay. Tim, your turn.
I am the business development manager at Onexia. I've been with the company now for over 12 and a half years, so I'm very affluent in the technology and everything that we represent here as a company. Our primary business driver is we are problem solvers. So customers come to us with a problem in their manufacturing process that they're looking to automate for one reason or another, and we work with them to develop a turnkey system that they can plug into their existing operation and be up and running with a highly productive and very efficient piece of machinery. We specialize in collaborative robots and also do a lot of standardized product systems pertaining to collaborative robots, whether it be palletizing, case packing, or case erecting. So we're very involved in a lot of different industries and help a lot of different customers in a lot of different situations that involve, the need to add robots to their specific processes.
That's great. I'll be anxious later. We're going to be talking about some themes such as the challenges in the labor market and how automation can help maybe offset that, the high cost of labor, developing repeatable processes, staying competitive in your industry. So we're going to have a lot to talk about today. I think I want to start, we talk a lot about operational excellence, and the title of today's virtual event is How to Drive Operational Excellence in Your Manufacturing Operation. And Vinay, I know you and I have spoken over the years. We've known each other, I think it's at least 20 years right now. We've talked about operational excellence. It's an area you specialize in. What does operational excellence mean to you?
It's a good question. And to frame operational excellence, I would say that it is a drive for relentless pursuit of excellence. It's continuous improvement in every aspect of your business. It's not just about what happens on a manufacturing production floor, but it's also about back office, it's about customer service, it's planning, it's supply chain, financials. So all the business functions driving their continuous improvement, that's what operational excellence means. And it's important to recognize that as important it is for a business internally, it is equally important for the business to drive that customer experience when you are thinking about operational excellence. Because without customers, you don't exist, and you exist to serve your customers. So how do you serve your customers the best you can with the resources that you have within your business? That's what operational excellence is. It's continuous improvement. It's relentless improvement. The other aspect I want to say, operational excellence is not a novel new concept. Years ago, Shigeo Shingo initiated some of this thought process, and it is well known around the world through the Toyota production system. There are a variety of tools and techniques that can be deployed in order to work towards and work on the journey for operational excellence. But at the very center of it It is the creation of value for your customers. It is the foundation of respect for every individual. It is the inherent nature to lead with humility. It is the drive of the organization for seeking perfection in every manner. It is the systems thinking and building the quality at the source. I often remember a very silly example, but it really shaped my thinking. I had submitted a term paper in my first quarter in my grad school. I did get an A for what I did, but as I submitted that term paper in front of my advisor, he looked at it and he looked back at me. And this went on for 3, 4 times. And he just started shaking his head. I was absolutely perplexed. What does this mean? He said, Vinay, do you know what you have done? I said, just submitted my term paper. I think I have done a good job. He says, yeah, you might have. Do you see something wrong here? I said, I couldn't. And he just looked at the way I had stapled it. It was a thick term paper, and I had plastered bunch of staples around it. It was not perfect. It was very awkward. But he said to me, whatever you do, seek perfection. You could have done a better job. And I know now you will always remember this, and I will never forget that. It's the same thing I've heard from my parents, and truly is that inspiration to drive what you do in the best possible way and to achieve perfection.
Vinay, as you go in and you look at operations, one of the reasons you're called in, I'm sure, is to help businesses stay competitive and maybe find it's about operational excellence, moving things forward. So tell me a little bit about the role that automation plays in that process, as far as either the types of recommendations you make or what you may look at. And then that way we can have Tim talk about developing, how do you develop repeatable processes and the role automation would play.
Certainly. So, as we start looking at a manufacturing business, we certainly want to look at the entire value stream. So, that starts with customer interaction all the way to shipment of the products and generation of the invoice. But in the heart of that, when it comes to the heart of that value stream, now you're on the production floor where value is being generated. The driver, obviously, when you're going in to optimize your value stream, is to continuously look for opportunities in that value stream, that what we call our SPQDC, key performance indicators. So SPQDC, key performance indicators, and that simply stands for safety, quality, productivity, delivery, and cost. So as we look at the value stream from a production perspective, now we start thinking about what can you do in order to take out the non-value added activity. Now you want to think about where your constraints are. Now you also want to figure out how you can eliminate those constraints and how you can improve the quality in that process. And this is where automation plays a big role.
So Tim, if you could speak a little bit about safety, I think that's an important thing that Vinay mentioned. In addition to that, I think a lot of manufacturers are concerned about robotics because of the amount of workspace, floor space that they may take up. So I wonder if you could just speak to first safety and then the kind of floor space concerns that manufacturers may have?
Definitely. So speaking to safety, first off, there's two reasons that you would be looking at safety, whether it be what is the machinery or the robotic cell, whatever the operator is working around, is that going to be safe? And the second portion of that, what is the current manual process and what are the ergonomic challenges associated with it? So when we go in and look at a manufacturing process that a customer is considering to automate, the first thing that we look at is what's the footprint available, what technology can we bring in? And also, what are the ergonomic challenges that the current manual process is presenting? Now, we can go about this one of two ways of bringing in a solution that's going to fully automate it and remove that ergonomic position completely, or is there a way that we can partially automate a solution that an operator can then interact with to then make it that they're not doing the more challenging portion of it, they may be doing the more technical portion of that process. Traditional automation, that was more of a challenge because it had to be caged, it had to have guarding, doors, all the things associated with traditional automation. With the advancement of collaborative technology, we can now work with a minimal footprint to deliver a piece of technology onto a production line that an operator can interact with. And in the event they were to interfere with it or it was to bump them, the whole entire system will stop. And then all they need to do is just go to the operator interface and start it over again. So as far as dealing with a footprint issue, there's a lot of advancements in the technology to go ahead and work in that space and then also be safe around the operator, which checks two boxes that a lot of manufacturers are currently struggling with.
Great. And so one of the objectives of automation, and particularly robotics, is creating, first of all, there's a labor factor. So if you have a machine doing something that's a repetitive task, that provides labor then can move into other roles within the company. One thing I hear about at trade shows, manufacturing trade shows, is the whole concept of dark rooms, taking a production floor, going dark. Vinay, is that something that you look at? Do you hear a lot about that?
Certainly. So when we talk about the cost drivers within a manufacturing process, along with the material and labor, you also want to look at the overhead costs that are associated. Manufacturing businesses that are interested in lowering their operating cost would want to continue to drive the production and get the throughput they want with minimum labor content. So automation could be a solution. Smart automation needs to be well thought of. And there are several organizations that we work with have gone to the extent that there is really nobody in the factory at night. We work with a tractor trailer manufacturer. We work with a machine shop. They are loading those machines. There are cobots that are actually taking the parts out of the machines. The material is being moved to the machines and being moved away from the machines. Even the tool changes are happening in the dark and light outs condition. So there is a lot of advancement in manufacturing to enable lights out or dark manufacturing. There is tremendous amount of work that needs to go in to ensure that it could run reliably and produce quality product.
I think that's a good segue back to you, Tim. What does it take to automate processes? How do you approach, if you're talking to a manufacturer, how do you approach helping them solve their problems and what's involved in that?
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great question. The big thing with automation is making something repeatable, something that can be done over and over again without any interaction. So when we go and approach somebody that's looking to do some type of lights out automation, you have to take a holistic approach to it and say, what are the challenging portions of this and how can we break it down to a granular level that it's some basic steps that can be automated. So speaking to machine tending, is it a matter of getting all the parts aligned into an array? So an operator may have to come in, position, say 50 parts on a table, 60 parts on a table, whatever it may be, and getting them into a position where the robot, all it has to do is just do a simple count. So working backward, 1 through 60, picking the parts, putting them into the machine, closing the door, and then turning it out. To continue on with that, it then becomes, what is the next step in the process? Where does that need to go? For some situations, it might just be placing it into the same array, just a completed part on a table. But we can go even farther with the advancement of position moving and say we want to put it onto an AGV, send it to the next position on the line to an additional robot. The next step of that would be if we wanted to go ahead and have an operator do the manual process that is very difficult to automate. And that is one of the bigger challenges that we run into from time to time is say 90% of the process can be easily automated, but that last 10% is a challenge. So what we like to do is look at it and say, okay, if you are trying to work towards lights out automation, you may need one or two people still there to do some of the final finishing, whether it be inspection. That just is a very tough thing to automate. And then working your way backwards and trying to eliminate those positions down the road.
So talking about darkroom and lights out automation, I relate back to my personal experience in the early mid 90s when I was doing a lot of machining work. And I had CNC turning center with a bar feeder running all night. And I did get the 3 o'clock call a few times, 3 o'clock in the morning, where something had gone wrong and the attendant on the floor had to call me and see how he could reset the machine. But I know the amount of work that needs to go in order to run lights out.
Thanks for sharing that, because I think that brings back a question that I would ask Tim is, so you go through a process, you automate something, you've now eliminated a manual process. What type of staffing or training does someone need to maintain that? Does the manufacturer do that? Do you do that? What's involved then once it's up and running?
That's great. So the way that we like to approach something like that is we ask the end user, the customer that we're working with, to find an internal champion, someone that's going to own the technology, that wants to be a part of it and is excited to use it. And from that point, they can do a majority of the troubleshooting themselves because they're affluent in it. If you think about traditional industrial robots where it required an engineer to be on site to do any type of troubleshooting because you have to read through miles of code to find what may be the issue, that's no longer the case. There's a lot of value add software that is available out there in the aftermarket that makes it very easy to go ahead and do a troubleshoot through a simple screen. So an operator who may be affluent in a little bit of tech, not to the full scale engineering background that you would think with traditional robots, they can look at a teach pendant or a basic HMI and look through the software and see the basic signals that are coming up and look at it and go, oh, there's just some dust on a scanner, or that airline got clogged, something like that. So it's more finding someone internally that wants to work with the technology and is ready to take ownership of it. And that also ensures project success because you have somebody there that's excited about it, they want to work with it. And after they get success built in internally on that first project, they're more inclined to go ahead and bring in more robotics or more automation to go ahead and continue to look at additional processes. So what we like to do is have our customers start at something that's very basic. Find the easiest task to automate so that they can get affluent in the technology, get comfortable working with it, so that as they start to approach the more challenging tasks, they have background knowledge of what it is and what the expectations are to be successful in that.
So I love the idea. We do this in our business, is something that's scalable. I hate to use the cliche crawl, walk, run, but it's so applicable. So making sure that you're purchasing a system that's scalable. I don't know, Tim, if maybe you, and maybe Vinay, you can comment as well, but the affordability, I think people will bring to they may have an idea that like robotics are really expensive, but that may be a whole series of robotic systems and whatever. I don't know if you could speak to that at all.
The affordability is always a question. But I think when we look at the entire value stream, you need to find the right opportunity to optimize the value stream. You don't want to create islands of automation, and you don't want to sink money that automates that particular operation to a great detail for the material to just sit after that, and the next process is not able to consume it at the rate that the previous process made it. So when you look at the return on investment on your automation, you have to take the holistic perspective Tim talked about. You have to ensure that you are looking at the entire value stream map and see what's that going to mean for your production.
I think that's a great point. We do the same thing. When I sit down with someone to talk to them about, everyone wants to talk about website, say, let's take a step back and talk about your business. The website is a tool. Okay. Robotics is a tool to help you meet a higher objective, to help you reach your business goals, whatever they may be. So, but go ahead, Tim, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, the one thing that I would like to add to that is when I go in and visit a customer, there's a lot of the times they have a specific process that's stuck in their head that is it's the pain point. It's the thing that is taking up the most time, the most labor, and it may also be the most challenging thing to automate. So what I like to do is actually walk their entire facility with them and look and see what other options are out there. So they may be looking at the most challenging thing, but there could be 5 or 6 other opportunities to automate more repetitive processes and take that reliable labor that's showing up every day and allocate them to the more challenging task. Not only does that eliminate a very routine ergonomic position that may have a higher turnover rate, but it also gives that labor a better opportunity that if they're showing up every day, if there's a position that has more value add to it, allocate them to that and automate the simple first. And then get your mind wrapped around about putting in additional automation. I was just visiting a customer a couple of weeks ago, and we were looking at a very challenging palletizing application. And as we were walking through, heading out the door to leave the facility, I looked over to my right, and there were 2 people doing the most mundane task ever. And it was just simple bags that were falling off a conveyor into a box. And I asked them, "What are those guys doing?" And they had said, "Oh, it takes about 2 to 3 people to handle that line, and all they're doing is shaking a box to get all the parts leveled so that they could push it through a taper." And I was like, "Have you considered automating that?" And they looked at me and they were like, "We have not, but if we could do that, that would eliminate 3 people a day off of that line and also eliminate that ergonomic challenge." I was actually joking with them and said, "Oh, you have a person in the bullpen because the people get so tired, they have to have somebody sit in the break room to then jump in and take over that process after the person tires out." So maybe it's not so much as thinking what you believe is going to be the biggest pain point. It could be bringing in a third party look at it and go, "Have you considered an alternative? Have you considered looking at it this way?" And then approach your project with an open mind and think maybe there are other opportunities that are easier in the facility, and we can go ahead and focus on those to start and then work our way towards that challenging one at the end.
Yeah,
Right.
excellent example and excellent point, Tim. I was just going to add to your point about ergonomics. So automation is not only to eliminate labor content in its entirety. We all know that finding good people is a challenge all over the world. And as we continue to see what we call silver tsunami of experienced people leaving manufacturing jobs, what is becoming more and more challenging is to build that critical quality into the process. If you can get into the depths of that business process, manufacturing process, and figure out how to do this repeatedly, how to eliminate the fatigue and bring in human assisted technology. It might be automation just to make the boxes or simple automation to tape the box. It removes a fatigue element for the operator. And now you have operators that are doing lighter work, they're less tired, and now you have operators that are more engaged and empowered to look for opportunities to improve the process.
So Vinay, you go into companies, you're looking at how to improve operations, lots of things that you look at. And one of the things that's always a challenge, I think, for business owners and possibly for you when you make the recommendation is, hey, why don't we automate this or that? You're going to be able to eliminate this many jobs. So how do you deal with delivering that message, or how do you recommend that business owners deliver that message to their employees?
It's a great question. I think for the operational excellence in general, it's all about culture and it's all about trust. So in order to build good culture, you need to build trust. You have to ensure that you manage this kind of a change in a very systematic way. And we have talked about change management methodologies such as ADKAR, which can be deployed in these situations, which ensures that the end result will be what you expected and not have improvements that can be only on paper. But in order for us to realize those improvements, you have to bring your people in the mix. You have to ensure that process improvement or the automation is not seen as a competitor. It is not seen as something that is taking away jobs. You have to continue to drive productivity because only productivity ensures the business can continue to be there 5 years, 10 years down the road. Otherwise, competitors, domestic as well as international, are going to come in and create lots of challenges for the business. So you have to ensure that the why behind this is very well articulated for all the stakeholders. And in most of the situations where we have operated in, we actually see that they open their arms and embrace this automation because it ensures not just the job security for them, but potentially for the next generation.
I think to Tim's point in his example, you have three laborers, probably not skilled, moving boxes, shaking boxes. By automating that process, here they're probably great employees showing up to work on time. They're just doing a mundane job. Now you have if three, or you take the best one, give them an opportunity to move up into maybe a better position. That's good for everybody, right?
Mhm.
Vinay, operational excellence. What other areas that comprise that broad topic do you think would be worth addressing now?
Yeah, so operational excellence, as I said, it's in every department, in every business process. There is a way to judge and look at your competency or your level of maturity, and then do the right things that are right for your business, for your size, for your scale, for your culture. It could be simple automation in terms of order entry. It is not going to be robotic order entry, but what is called robotic process automation. You could deploy these types of techniques, whether it's optical character recognition of an email that comes in, and you scrub that and you enter that data into your ERP system so that you can actually take away mundane, non-value added typing and mistakes in that particular process. Or you actually take on challenges in order to reduce the non-value added activity by doing a variety of things such as point of use inventory on the production floor. You can drive the operational excellence through cultural change. One of the things that ESPI is really proud of is addressing this cultural issue at what we call the most critical link. And the critical link is the supervisory position. Many a times what we find out that supervisors got that position because they were good at what they were doing. They got promoted. But many times as a supervisor, they don't have the training and the experience in order to be good leaders. And if you are driving culture of operational excellence at every place in the organization, and you want to have that every day, then you need to get these leaders trained. You need to bring in lean leadership mindset and culture in the organization. There are a variety of techniques that are available, but we have done leadership boot camp in order to get people to become effective leaders. All other things that can go along in terms of tools and technologies are important, but you need to ensure that there is a strong foundation at this critical level in an organization.
I'm going to switch gears a little bit. So I go to quite a few trade shows. Actually, Tim and I were out in Las Vegas at the PAC Expo West conference a few months ago. And one of the topics that I hear thrown around now is manufacturing 4.0. So, Vinay, I'm going to ask you to define that for the audience today. What is it? Why is it important? And then, Tim, I'd like you to address how what you do fits in with manufacturing 4.0.
Manufacturing 4.0 or Internet of Things or Industrial Internet of Things is the next generation of manufacturing excellence. And it is true that this can be very transformative for businesses. What used to be in the capacity of Fortune 100 companies is now affordable to small, mid-sized businesses. It is because the virtual world or the world of internet and software is coming into the hard manufacturing floor. I like to use the example that it is almost like you are in a Broadway show and you are the manager and you are sitting in the audience and your production is happening on the stage. But there are many layers of curtains in between. So, are you really getting the true picture of what is going on in the real time? Many times the answer is no. I'm looking at what happened yesterday because that's when I've come to know that I had a quality problem on a particular machine. But now you are taking those curtains away and you are really seeing what is happening in real time. So you can do something about it. If you see that the temperature on an injection molding machine is increasing beyond a certain point, you know that you will have quality problems. So instead of creating a batch of 100,000 parts and then finding out that, oh, I could have avoided that situation, now you can bring in those sensors and you can bring in that technology in order to give the real perspective of production to the right people. It's not just simply about putting the sensors and creating alerts and messages, but it's actually about driving the philosophy of continuous improvement and problem solving. Internet of Things or Manufacturing 4.0 platform are growing. They're getting smarter by the advent of machine learning and artificial intelligence. And you need to bring that in your manufacturing floor, not just because it's sexy, not just it's because the thing of the topic of the day, but it's really trying to build a business process mindset that will continue to understand what is going on and improve the process.
I would like to add when it comes to the Internet of Things, Industry 4.0, it's a large buzzword. And at first glance, a lot of people, they balk at it because it's like, how do I begin? How do I get started? What is the first piece of technology that I go and add in to make this happen? And Vinay made a great point that it can be as simple as just a quality control. Rather than having somebody standing there doing that inspection in real time, with the advancements of AI and vision systems, you can make those connections over the internet where someone may be working upstairs in a lights out facility where after say 3 or 4 rejects of a poor part, you now have the AI doing the inspection and the vision system doing the inspection. And then it's just a matter of, oh, there's something going on down the floor that's not correct. I need to go down and take a look at it. So the grander scheme of it is, sure, you can get your entire facility online, watch it from a different country if you need to, but how does that realistically play in everyday activity? And trying to find a good approach to it to get started with it, which may just be as simple as a quality control, or even just as simple as having a barcode reader that's reading the code of a case that's being palletized to go out the door. There's very simple approaches to it that make it more achievable for a small to medium manufacturer. When this term first came out, there were a few large-scale manufacturers, both locally and internationally, that put a lot of effort into it and were like, we're going to make this our thing. They made it a champion internally, globally, to go ahead and do this. And I started to go to a couple of conferences like trade shows, and they'd have these large speakers talking about it. And the smaller manufacturers are sitting there going, how do I even get started with this? And at the time, it was very unachievable because the technology was so new. But with the advancements of AI, vision, and just basic automation, it's something that anybody can really start to add into their facility and see an ROI on it instantly, because not only is it making the process more streamlined, but it's also making it more efficient because you don't have to rely on somebody else doing a manual inspection because there's technology there to do it for you.
Yeah, Tim and Vinay, thank you. That was good conversation about manufacturing 4.0. Tim, you're right. There's a lot of those kind of buzzwords that get thrown out. Right now, I hear a lot about AI at the trade shows, and I'm hearing more and more about manufacturing 4.0. Getting back to automation, let me start with you, Tim. I think we've talked a little bit, we talked about palletizing robots and automating some of that packaging. You mentioned those 3 people at the end of the machine shaking the box. What other type of automation is there out there that manufacturers should be considering?
So when a manufacturer comes to us and says, I'm looking to add automation, I really don't know where to start, the question I ask them is, what is the biggest pain point? What is the biggest challenge that you're seeing right now? And a lot of times it can be a training issue where the turnover rate is a challenge. They have people come in and say 3 weeks, they disappear off the planet and they're right back to square one. And a lot of times that what ends up happening is the supervisor is the one that has to jump in and handle that process. So when you're looking at manufacturing and automating it, the way to approach it is maybe it's not so much the ROI on a single position, but what additional technology can I add in to take that training cycle down? So it's easier to bring somebody in, more of a plug and play system. So it could be as basic as automating some basic press tending or machining process or some type of really meticulous thing that is tough to train, but it may be easy to automate. The other things to look at are material handling and just dull repetitive tasks. There's a lot of advancements in technology as far as adding in something adding a piece of machinery into an existing process, whether it be a collaborative robot or an industrial robot, and really making that a very simple process to go ahead and watch over. So as much creating a supervisory role as opposed to a manufacturing position. We do a lot of work in the collaborative robot sphere as far as adding robots to existing lines, whether it be a machine tending line, a packaging line, or just a simple vision inspection where you're taking a part, holding it up to a camera saying, yeah, that's the part, it looks great, putting it down and sending it down the next portion of the line. There's a lot that really can be done. Finding a company or a consultant or somebody that's able to step up to the plate and walk through your process and help point to things that you may not even know exist yet. I like to use a great example of when I first started here at Onexia, collaborative robots did not exist. And now it's our number one piece of technology that we use every single day. It's the number one thing that we're pushing out the door. It's the number one thing that our customers are buying. What you may think you need to do may not be the best place to get started. And there could be something that you can add in today that's going to start working and start saving you money and just make that process easier to work around.
Could you just clarify collaborative versus industrial robots? I don't know if everyone will know the difference.
Certainly. So if you think about an industrial robot, that is something that, and if you've ever seen a commercial or an automotive assembly line where there's a lot of big arms moving around in tandem, if you were to stand in that cell and be hit by one of those robots, it would keep moving and it would not be a great day for the person that was standing in that cell. A collaborative robot is one that runs uncaged. So it doesn't require any guarding and an operator can stand right next to it. The reason it's called collaborative is because the intent is to be a collaborative work cell with a human so that you can work alongside with it. The way that the safety works within a collaborative robot is if it is to collide with a human, an object, whether it be a cart, a forklift, whatever ends up getting in the way of it, it will just stop. And at that point, it's up to the operator to just go to the HMI, the teach pendant, whatever they're working off of, and just start the robot again, and it's going to continue. There's a lot of, originally when cobots came out, there was a lot of hesitancy among manufacturers, but now there's guidelines out there, there's ANSI standards, there's RIA standards, that you can go ahead and have your EHS team look at it, and it gives an extra level of confidence of putting these in. That is one of the major challenges that we run into is sometimes it's the first robot that somebody is bringing into the door and they're very hesitant to work around it. But with all the standards that are out there now, it adds an extra security blanket when it comes to deploying new technology.
So Vinay, what other types of automation have you seen as you go into manufacturing facilities besides what's already been mentioned?
I will give you a couple of examples. Automation opportunities are in all different types of manufacturing. We have seen robots that are in the paint room. We have seen robots that are being used for finishing operations, such as buffing operation. We have seen automation in order to do final inspection or to do non-destructive testing, which is sort of an inspection. One of our projects, we actually came up with a very innovative automation piece of equipment that has been patented. And ESPI worked very closely with this customer, which had a very unique process to deposit certain things on a fabric. And this process was very arduous and it was done in a fairly manual way with almost just a 50% yield. And with the automation, this is a fully automated process. We have 95% yield and a much higher throughput, which is almost 4 times what was being done with a manual process. So you have to really dig and figure out what kind of automation would be applicable. You will find automation from machines, paint rooms, as I already mentioned, and there is a lot of automation in material handling as well. One of our customers stores certain wood products in an environmentally controlled room, and those products need to be moved from this environmentally controlled room to the production area every day, couple of times during the day. And now they have little moving automated guided vehicles, or the Roombas as they call them, taking the products and moving them to the production room. So that fatigue for somebody to take the product, move the product has been eliminated. And it's happening like a clockwork.
I'm glad you mentioned that. So at the trade show at the PAC Expo West, there was a company there, Auto Motors. They did a virtual event for us. And I come from a direct mail fulfillment background. So I worked in warehouses and been around. I haven't worked in them, but I've been around them. And to watch what they had a display there with a forklift and several pallet movers, that it's all computerized with kind of a central control. But these things were moving around the floor, not bumping into each other. Really fascinating to see, and I can imagine would be very effective. But Vinay, I'm glad you mentioned the temperature controlled room. My understanding, and I think this is just intuitive, but Tim, maybe you could speak to this. Robots is not a solution for everything. So you taking material from one building to another through the rain or certain temperature things, I know is not permitted. Just speak to that if you could.
Yeah, so we run into this all the time where there are advancements in collaborative robots, and they will be very soon. The technology will be more widely adopted into more caustic environments, whether it be hazardous materials that are being around or just a very intense environment, whether it be hot or cold. They're not really designed for that just yet. So what we have done and what we've created are solutions that are portable. I'm going to use the example of a washdown environment. So like at an end of a line in a food service industry or a food packaging industry, where at the end of the day, the third shift is typically just doing a washdown, cleaning everything up from the end of the day. So the technology that we provide isn't necessarily geared towards being in that room for the washdown, but it can be removed from the room so that the washdown can happen and then be replaced at the end of the washdown time. So say third shift, that entire shift, they're responsible for cleaning up all the trimmings, everything that has happened in that room throughout the day. They pull our systems out of the way, go ahead, do the washdown, and then move it back in, position it, get it ready to go so that when first shift comes in, they have a clean floor to start the process up again. That's one of the main workarounds that we've been working with our customers to do. And also by providing simplified automation where it doesn't take an engineer to come in and have to reprogram everything, and make it a very easy to use system that they can go ahead, push a few buttons, and the robot's retooled, it remembers where it is, and they're up and running in about 5 minutes, as opposed to having to do a 4-hour changeover. So there's advancements there. There's also workarounds with it. But I do see in the future a lot more advancement in the ability to have robots be able to stay stationary in those types of facilities.
Yeah. Just a point, Eric. Our daughter Sonali works for medical device manufacturer in Pennsylvania, and we have all heard of robotic surgery being performed. But it's really interesting when you think about automation that it is not always about eliminating that human labor. but assisting humans to perform their operation in a much better way. So this company helps dental surgeons to do their job effectively and to help the patient by getting quality work done in an effective manner.
This has been a great conversation. I want to wrap up with a final question to Tim, and that is, if I'm a manufacturer, I'm interested in looking at robots. What should I be looking for when I look for someone to partner with for robotics?
The first thing that I would recommend is look at their previous work. What have they done in the past? As that's going to be a great starting point. We do a lot of stuff in the packaging sphere. So we have a lot of experience as far as automating, building a box, packing a box, stacking a box. That's our affluency, and we're really good at it. We're also very good at machine tending. The one thing, and I'm just using myself as an example, is welding is not something that we would consider one of our strong points. So we personally may not be the best fit for that. But at the same time, we have a lot of experience in other fields. So step one is actually finding someone that's very competent in your industry, as they're going to be best to speak to what they believe is going to be the best solution. After you find that, at that point, you have an idea of somebody that, hey, they've done this work in the past. I believe that they're going to be a great group to work with. And then having them come into your facility and just having a general conversation where you can say, these are the problems that I'm having, whether it's training, turnover, repeatability, throughput, whatever it is. And ask them just generally, what are your questions? Like, what would you recommend? And starting that conversation that way. What we like to do and at our Onexia is we consider ourselves a long-term solution provider, someone that we can work with at the beginning and say, okay, here's the easy one to get started with. Let's get you guys up and running. Let's get a robot in. Let's get a piece of automation in, and then working to scale that upward. And if you can find that right group of people that are going to be able to work with you and understand your processes, your industry, and the problems that you're currently dealing with, because chances are you're not the only one dealing with it. You're not the only one that's ever tried to automate this process. And finding someone that already has done it is going to make it's going to be a better project to work on, and you're going to see more success out of it. So that'd be my recommendation, is to find somebody that's done work in your industry in the past, understands the technology, and can hold your hand and also be your partner as you work through that journey to go ahead and add automation in, which is just going to make it for a better, successful solution overall.
Vinay and Tim, thank you so much for joining us today. And Vinay, I know this is like the third event you've done, and I look forward to others. And Tim, really appreciate you participating today. And if we come up with other topics, I'd be happy to have you join us again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.